Welcome fight fans to the liverpuncher.com boxing show. We're your hosts, Manny and Sal, and in this episode we're going to discuss the major fights happening this year in 2010. Joshua Clottey versus Manny Pacquiao, plus Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Shane Mosley, coming up.
Welcome to the liverpuncher.com fight show, and as Manny talked about, we're going to talk about the failed negotiations of Mayweather versus Pacquiao. Manny, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the negotiations fell apart because of the 10-day gap that the two fighters couldn't agree on. Manny Pacquiao wanted testing 24 days before the fight, and Mayweather agreed to 14 days before the fight. And so that difference of the 10 days ultimately broke the fight. Now, who do you blame in this situation?
I mean, you know, Mayweather, I think he's got a legitimate gripe. I mean, you don't want somebody in there using futuristic drugs while you're boxing. You know, you want to know and make sure that everybody's clean.
Yeah, I agree, because he's the one putting his head on the chopping block, and you have a legitimate concern to know that everybody's clean, and not to say that Pacquiao isn't clean, but hey, you know, boxing's evolved throughout the years to change the rules. You know, to get HIV testing wasn't done before, but now they're doing it. The weigh-ins are now done the day of the day before the fight rather than the day of, and these are all to make things safer for the fighters.
Yeah, I mean, really, the rules of boxing, I mean, they haven't caught up with the times. You know, baseball has implemented instant replay already. I mean, boxing, they're still using the urine test. So really, I mean, what's the moral of the story in this?
I think the moral of the story is that boxing needs to standardize itself with the blood testing and catch up with the changing and evolving blood tests, and this would have never happened. We would have seen the fight if boxing was caught up with its rules.
So Manny, I mean, what's your thoughts on this? I mean, is this ultimately a blessing in disguise for us as boxing fans?
I would say it is, because even though we didn't get this fight, we ended up with two fights that are probably even better. You know, we have Pacquiao versus Clottey, which, in my personal opinion, would probably be more action-packed than Pacquiao Mayweather, just because of Mayweather's defensive style.
Yeah, I think that Clottey, I mean, brings a lot to the table. I mean, a lot of people thought that he pulled off a draw against Miguel Cotto, and the guy is a legitimate welterweight. He's got a nice jab. He's got some power.
He's strong. He reminds me of Ike Cortez, a little bit of Azuma Nelson.
He's got that style that comes out of Ghana. You know, tough, come forward, great boxing skills.
And the thing is, he's not gonna be defensive. He's very offensive minded, and so is Pacquiao. And that's gonna create huge fireworks in Texas.
Yeah, it's great they're having it in Texas too. Kind of change of venue. In a football stadium, and throwing on a pretty good undercard as well with some big names.
You know, so it's going to be a good card. It's going to be a good event, as it's aptly named, and so that's a great event. Nothing to be ashamed of.
You recommend people buy this fight?
Absolutely. I think this is going to be a great event, and I think Pacquiao and Clottey are going to throw some bombs.
So it's another fight that just kind of went off the radar was the Berto versus Mosley. That failed this January. A lot of people were looking forward to it. It was a championship unification type fight. Manny, what happened there?
Well, boxing always finds a way to survive. It's one of the oldest sports in the world, and despite Berto not being able to fight, I think we're left with something even better. Mayweather Mosley, something we've been looking for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, even way before we've been talking about Mayweather versus Pacquiao, and a lot of fight fans were wanting that fight. We've been talking about Mosley versus Mayweather since the late 1990s, when, you know, back in the day, 10 years at least.
Back when they were at lightweight, we all wanted that fight to happen, and now it's finally happening. And you know, it just shows that, you know, boxing finds a way to survive. And why do you think this fight even took place? I mean, some people had a criticism that Mayweather wasn't even going to fight Mosley.
Yeah.
I mean,
a lot of people were saying Mayweather's going to squirrel out of fighting Mosley. A lot of people were saying it's not going to happen. I mean, really, I think the competition in boxing and the fact that Manny Pacquiao is stepping up to fight Clottey, that's a huge fight. But Mayweather had to come out and fight somebody big, if not bigger,
and he
to
did
be legit.
And he did it. Yeah, and you're right, because Pacquiao really upped the ante. You know, if Mayweather didn't fight somebody equivalent to a Clottey,
right,
that Pacquiao took on, you know, there were some names out there. Who were
some of the names they were throwing out was Matthew Hatton, from what I heard.
Yeah.
Also, there were some other names.
Malignaggi.
Right.
You know, he's a little bit smaller than
Yeah.
at welterweight. So you know
where Pacquiao versus Clottey is a huge fight. I mean, Mosley versus Mayweather is a super fight. I mean, both are great fights for boxing fans. Really,
it turns back to Sugar Ray Leonard versus Tommy Hearns, two Americans going at it at the same weight class, and Mosley still has a lot in the tank, and I think he's gonna pressure Mayweather in the fight.
So let's talk about some of the analysis on these fights. First of all, what do you think of Pacquiao versus Clottey? How do you see that fight? How do these two match up?
It's an interesting fight. They're both very offensive minded, but I think the difference is going to be Pacquiao's speed. Speed kills, and it's not so much his hand speed, but his foot speed. I think the Ghanaian fighter, Clottey, is a little more stationary than Pacquiao, and he's gonna hit and move, and Clottey throws some sledgehammers, but it's gonna be hard to find Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah, I do agree on that point. Also, I'm wondering about the stamina of Clottey. From what we saw in the Cotto fight, he kind of slowed down at the end, where if he would have picked it up, you know, there was a good chance he could have won that fight. And Pacquiao will definitely take advantage of, if he slowed down in those middle to late rounds, he will find a way to take advantage.
Those are his rounds.
He does not slow down. I think, I think early on you're going to see some huge fireworks. And it might be kind of rough in there. I know Clottey, Pacquiao will probably hold a little bit. But I do see Manny Pacquiao using his speed, footwork, and power ultimately to
I completely agree.
Bring him down.
I think he's gonna win. It's gonna be a great fight. It's not gonna be easy, but I'm picking Pacquiao.
I got Pacquiao as well for that fight, and we'll see how it turns out.
How about your analysis for Mosley Mayweather? How do you see that?
Okay, Mosley Mayweather, again, a fight we've been waiting for over 10 years.